Sophia Chen adjusted her thick-rimmed glasses for the 100th time that morning as she walked through the marble lobby of Hartwell Technologies. Her loose-fitting gray blazer and ankle-length skirt made her blend into the corporate landscape like a shadow. At 28, she had perfected the art of being invisible. She preferred it that way. The elevator carried her to the 42nd floor, where she had worked as executive assistant to Nathan Hartwell for 3 years. Every morning was the same routine: arrive early, organize his schedule, prepare his coffee exactly how he liked it, and manage his complicated life with quiet efficiency. Nathan Hartwell was the kind of man who commanded attention wherever he went. At 35, he had built a tech empire worth billions, but success had come at a cost. His wife had died in a car accident 5 years ago, leaving him to raise their daughter Grace alone. Since then, he had built walls around his heart that seemed impossible to breach. Sophia settled at her desk outside Nathan's corner office. Her workspace, a model of organization. Everything had its place, from the color-coded filing system to the precisely arranged pens. She took pride in anticipating Nathan's needs before he even knew he had them, scheduling meetings, handling difficult clients, and managing the countless details that kept his world running smoothly. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows as Nathan arrived at 8 sharp, as always. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, his dark hair slightly tousled from the helicopter ride from his penthouse. He nodded curtly at Sophia without really seeing her, the way he had for 3 years. "Good morning, Mr. Hartwell," Sophia said softly, standing to hand him his morning briefing. "Your 9 o'clock with the Seoul investors has been moved to 10. And Mrs. Patterson called about Grace's school play this Friday." Nathan took the file without looking at her directly. "Cancel whatever I have Friday evening. Grace comes first." His voice was firm but tired, carrying the weight of a man who juggled corporate responsibility with single parenthood. As Nathan disappeared into his office, Sophia returned to her desk, fighting the familiar flutter in her chest that came whenever he spoke about his daughter. She had met Grace only a few times when the little girl visited the office, but each encounter revealed Nathan's softer side, the devoted father hidden beneath the stern business exterior. Sophia had harbored feelings for Nathan almost from her first day, but she buried them deep. Men like Nathan Hartwell didn't notice women like her. He moved in circles of sophisticated socialites and accomplished professionals, while she remained in the background, efficient and unremarkable. Her phone buzzed with a text from her friend James Liu in accounting. "Coffee later? You look like you need it." Sophia glanced at her reflection in her computer screen and sighed. She did look tired, but then again, she always did. Her beauty routine consisted of pulling her long black hair into a practical bun and applying just enough makeup to look professional without drawing attention. The morning flew by in a whirlwind of meetings, phone calls, and crisis management. A software launch had hit unexpected problems, requiring Nathan to make difficult decisions about timeline and budget. Sophia watched him through his glass office walls, admiring how he commanded respect from executives twice his age, how his mind worked through complex problems with laser focus. At lunch, she sat alone in the company cafeteria, picking at a salad while reading reports. She noticed other women in the company, marketing executives in designer dresses, programmers in trendy casual wear, all confident and vibrant in ways that seemed foreign to her. They laughed easily, spoke up in meetings, demanded attention, just by existing. Rebecca Monroe, Nathan's business partner and one of the most stunning women Sophia had ever seen, swept through the cafeteria like a force of nature. Her red hair cascaded in perfect waves, her emerald dress hugged every curve, and her confidence radiated from across the room. She was everything Sophia felt she could never be: bold, beautiful, and utterly captivating. The afternoon brought its own challenges. Major client threatened to pull their contract unless Nathan personally flew to Los Angeles for an emergency meeting. Sophia quickly rearranged his entire week, booking flights, hotels, and coordinating with the West Coast team. She thrived on solving problems, on being the person who made impossible things possible. As evening approached, the office began to empty. but Nathan remained at his desk, poring over financial projections. Sophia hesitated in his doorway, knowing she should leave, but wanting to ensure he didn't work too late. "Mr. Hartwell," she said quietly, "Grace's dinner is at 7. Mrs. Patterson mentioned she made her favorite spaghetti." Nathan looked up, and for a moment Sophia thought she saw something softer in his dark eyes. "Thank you, Sophia. I don't know what I'd do without you keeping track of everything." The words sent warmth through her chest, but she kept her expression neutral. "Just doing my job, sir." That evening, Sophia returned to her modest apartment across town. She lived simply, saving most of her salary to help support her elderly parents. Her small space was comfortable but unremarkable. Filled with books and plants that required little maintenance, she stood before her bathroom mirror, really looking at herself for the first time in months. Beneath the conservative styling, she could see the features her mother had always called beautiful: high cheekbones inherited from her Chinese grandmother, naturally thick lashes, full lips that she kept bare of color. Her figure, hidden beneath loose clothing, was slender but curvy in all the right places. But beauty felt dangerous to Sophia. Her last relationship had ended badly when her ex-boyfriend became possessive and controlling, threatened by any attention she received from other men. Since then, she had chosen safety over attraction, visibility over vulnerability. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Mrs. Patterson, Nathan's longtime housekeeper. "Sophia, dear," the older woman's warm voice filled the line. "Hope you don't mind me calling. Mr. Nathan mentioned the company pool party next Friday, and Grace is so excited. She's been asking if you'll be there." Sophia's heart skipped. The annual company pool party was legendary, a lavish affair at Nathan's estate, where employees could bring their families for an evening of relaxation. She had always found excuses to skip it. "Not sure I'll attend, Mrs. Patterson. These social events aren't really my thing." "Oh, but you must come," Mrs. Patterson insisted. "Grace specifically asked for you. She says you're the only one who listens when she talks about her books. And between you and me, I think Mr. Nathan could use more people around who genuinely care about him, not just his money." After hanging up, Sophia sat on her small couch, torn between desire and fear. Part of her longed to see Nathan in a relaxed setting, to meet Grace properly, to step out of her carefully constructed shell. But another part whispered warnings about the dangers of being seen, of being noticed, of wanting things that seemed impossible. She thought about the women who moved confidently through Nathan's world. Women like Rebecca Monroe who demanded attention and got it. Could she ever be like that? Did she even want to be? As she prepared for bed, Sophia made a decision that would change everything. She would go to the pool party, not as the invisible assistant who faded into the background, but as herself, the woman she had been hiding for so long. The next morning brought new energy to her step as she arrived at the office. Nathan was already in meetings, his schedule packed with investor calls and strategy sessions. But Sophia found herself stealing glances at him throughout the day, imagining what it would be like to see him relaxed, perhaps even happy. During her lunch break, she did something she hadn't done in years. She went shopping, not for practical work clothes, but for something that would make her feel beautiful. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. The woman in the department store. Mirror looked familiar, yet foreign, as Sophia tried on a flowing summer dress in soft blue. It hugged her curves gently, the color bringing out the warmth in her dark eyes. For the first time in years, she saw herself as more than just a efficient employee or dutiful daughter. She was a woman with her own dreams, her own desires, her own right to happiness. The pool party was still days away, but already Sophia felt something shifting inside her. The invisible woman was preparing to step into the light, with no idea how dramatically her world was about to change. Friday evening arrived with perfect weather, warm sunshine, and a gentle breeze that made the water in Nathan's infinity pool shimmer like diamonds. The Hartwell estate sprawled across 5 acres of manicured grounds, with the main house overlooking the pool area where employees and their families gathered for the annual company celebration. Nathan stood on the stone terrace, Watching his guests enjoy themselves while Grace splashed happily in the shallow end with children from the accounting department, he wore casual khakis and a white linen shirt, looking more relaxed than anyone at the office had seen him in years. Still, his eyes held that familiar distance, the protective barrier he maintained even in social settings. Rebecca Monroe held court near the bar, her designer bikini and flowing cover-up drawing admiring glances from male colleagues. She had positioned herself strategically where Nathan could see her, hoping to catch his attention, as she had been trying to do for months. Business partnership was profitable, but she wanted something more personal from the billionaire. James. Liu spotted his friend's car, pulling into the circular driveway, and nudged his wife. Sophie's here. About time she showed up to one of these things. He had been encouraging Sophia to be more social for years, knowing she was too talented and kind to hide in the shadows forever. Nathan barely registered the arrival of another guest. His mind was on the week ahead, the Los Angeles trip, the merger discussions, the constant pressure of running an empire while raising a daughter alone. He had learned to compartmentalize his life, keeping emotions locked away, where they couldn't interfere with business decisions. The pool area buzzed with conversation and laughter as employees enjoyed the rare opportunity to see their CEO outside the corporate environment. Children played in the water while parents relaxed with drinks, grateful for Nathan's generosity in hosting such elaborate gatherings. Then everything changed. Sophia appeared at the entrance to the pool area, and conversations gradually fell silent. As heads turned, gone were the thick glasses, replaced by contacts that revealed her stunning dark eyes. Her long black hair flowed in soft waves past her shoulders, catching the golden light of early evening. She wore a flowing summer dress in deep sapphire blue that skimmed her curves perfectly, paired with delicate silver sandals. But the transformation went deeper than clothing and styling. Sophia carried herself differently, shoulders back, chin raised, moving with a grace and confidence that seemed to light her from within. Who was ready to claim her place in the world. Nathan's conversation with the department head died mid-sentence as his gaze found Sophia across the pool. For 3 years, she had been a fixture in his office, competent, reliable, practically invisible. The woman walking toward them bore little resemblance to his efficient assistant. She was breathtakingly beautiful, elegant in a way that made his chest tighten unexpectedly. "My God," Rebecca whispered to her companion, her confidence shaken. "For the first time in years, who is that woman?" "That's Sophia Chen," James called out, his voice filled with pride for his friend. "Nathan's assistant, though I guess tonight she's just Sophia." Grace spotted Sophia immediately and squealed with delight, climbing out of the pool to run toward her with dripping hair and a bright smile. "Sophie, you came. Daddy said you might not come, but I knew you would." Sophia knelt down to embrace the 8-year-old, her face lighting up with genuine warmth. "I wouldn't miss it, sweetheart. Mrs. Patterson told me you've been reading the books I recommended, all of them. And I drew pictures of the characters. Want to see?" Grace grabbed Sophia's hand, eager to show off her artwork. Nathan found himself walking toward them without conscious thought, drawn by something he couldn't name. Up close, Sophia was even more stunning. Her skin glowed with health. Her smile transformed her entire face, and her eyes held depths he had never noticed before. "Sophia," he said, his voice rougher than intended, "you look different tonight." She met his gaze directly for the first time in years, no longer hiding behind downcast eyes and nervous gestures. "I decided it was time to stop hiding, Mr. Hartwell. Though tonight perhaps you could call me Sophia." The simple request hit him like a physical blow. In 3 years, their relationship had been strictly professional, built on formal distance and careful boundaries.
She stood before him
As a woman, not just an employee, and he felt the walls he had built around his heart developing dangerous cracks. "Nathan," he corrected automatically. "Tonight I'm just Nathan." Grace tugged on Sophia's dress, demanding attention. "Come see my pictures. You have to meet my friend Emma. Her daddy works in the computer department." As Sophia allowed herself to be pulled away by the excited child, Nathan remained frozen in place, watching her interact with Grace and the other children. She was a natural with kids, patient, playful, genuinely interested in their chatter about school and friends and summer plans. Rebecca appeared at his elbow, her expression carefully controlled. "Your assistant cleans up well. Quite a transformation." Nathan didn't respond, unable to tear his gaze away from Sophia as she sat cross-legged on the grass, surrounded by children eager to show her their pool games and drawings. She laughed at something Grace whispered in her ear, the sound carrying across the water like music. "Nathan," Rebecca pressed, her hand touching his arm. "We should discuss the Morrison contract. Perhaps we could step inside where it's quieter." "Not tonight?" Nathan said distantly. "Tonight is for family and friends, not business." Rebecca's perfectly manicured fingers tightened on his arm. She had known Nathan for 5 years, had watched him date occasionally, but never seriously commit to anyone since his wife's death. Tonight, something was different. The way he looked at his assistant suggested feelings that Rebecca had been trying to inspire in him for months. As evening deepened, string lights illuminated the pool area, and a catered buffet appeared on tables. Draped in white linen, employees filled their plates and found seats around the pool. The atmosphere relaxed and festive. Sophia found herself seated at a table with James and his wife, along with several other colleagues she had worked with but never socialized with. For the first time, she was part of the conversation instead of invisible on the sidelines. "I can't believe you've been hiding this gorgeous woman from us for 3 years, laughed Maria Santos from marketing. "Girl, you need to come out with us more often. We have so much fun together." Sophia felt warmth spread through her chest at the easy acceptance, the invitation to be part of something larger than her carefully controlled world. "I'd like that," she said, meaning it completely. Nathan approached their table as dessert was being served, carrying 2 plates of chocolate cake. "Grace insisted I bring you cake," he said to Sophia, though his eyes suggested the gesture was his own idea. "She says chocolate cake makes everything better." "Smart girl," Sophia replied, accepting the plate with a smile that made Nathan's pulse quicken. "Though I think good company makes it even better." He lingered beside her chair, seemingly reluctant to leave. "Grace wants to show you the rose garden after dinner. She's been helping Mrs. Patterson plant new varieties." "I'd love to see it," Sophia said. "I have a small garden at my apartment. Nothing elaborate, but I find working with plants peaceful." Was the first personal detail she had ever shared with him, and Nathan found himself wanting to know more. What else had he missed about this woman who had been part of his daily life for 3 years? What dreams and interests had she hidden behind her professional demeanor? The evening continued with easy conversation and laughter, but Nathan was acutely aware of Sophia's presence at every moment. He watched her interact with his employees, saw how naturally she fit into the social dynamic, noticed how people gravitated toward her warmth and genuine interest in their lives. When Grace finally claimed her promised garden tour, Nathan found himself walking alongside them as his daughter chattered about soil types and bloom schedules. In the soft light of the garden lanterns, Sophia looked like something from a fairy tale, beautiful and mysterious, yet grounded in the reality of caring for an excited child and listening to her endless questions. "The roses are beautiful," Sophia said, bending to smell a particularly fragrant bloom. "You've done wonderful work, Grace." "Mrs. Patterson says gardening teaches patience," Grace replied seriously, "like waiting for people to bloom when they're ready." "What?" Nathan caught Sophia's eye over his daughter's head, and something passed between them, an understanding, a recognition, a possibility that neither had allowed themselves to consider before. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Sophia knew her transformation was complete. She was no longer the invisible assistant hiding in the shadows. Tonight, she had stepped into the light and discovered that the world didn't end when people really saw her. In fact, it might just be beginning. The Monday morning after the pool party arrived with the kind of electric tension that made the air itself seem charged with possibility. Sophia entered the Hartwell Technologies building with her head held high, wearing a tailored emerald dress. That showed her newfound confidence without sacrificing professionalism. She had spent the weekend shopping with James's wife, Maria, who had insisted on helping her build a wardrobe that reflected her true self. Nathan was already in his office when she arrived. Something was different. Looked up when she entered. Really looked at her, his dark eyes taking in the elegant way she moved, the subtle makeup that enhanced her natural beauty. The way her hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders instead of being scraped back in a severe bun. "Good morning, Nathan," she said, using his first name deliberately. Friday night had changed the rules between them, and she wasn't going back to the old ways. Sophia, he replied, her name sounding different on his lips. Good weekend? Transformative? She answered with a smile that made his chest tighten. Your schedule today includes the Morrison group at 10, lunch with the Soul team at 1, and you asked me to block out time this afternoon for Grace's school conference. She handed him his morning briefing, their fingers brushing briefly in. The exchange. The contact sent electricity up Nathan's arm, and he found himself staring at her hands, elegant. With short painted nails and soft pink instead of her usual clear polish. Sophia, he said as she turned to leave. About Friday night, she paused in the doorway, looking back at him with eyes that held new depths of confidence. What about it? You seem different, more yourself, if that makes sense? Makes perfect sense, she said softly. I decided to stop being afraid of who I really am. Life's too short to hide in the shadows. As she left his office, Nathan found himself unable to concentrate on the financial reports spread across his desk. Instead, he kept thinking about the way Sophia had looked under the garden lanterns. How naturally she had connected with Grace. The sound of her laughter carrying across the water. Rebecca Monroe arrived for their 10 o'clock meeting looking flawless as always, her red hair perfectly styled, and her designer suit fitted to perfection. But Nathan found himself comparing her polished beauty to Sophia's natural elegance, and Rebecca came up lacking. Nathan, you seem distracted, Rebecca said, settling into the chair across from his desk. I hope everything is all right. Fine, he replied curtly, forcing himself to focus on business. The Morrison contract needs our full attention today. But even as they discussed terms and negotiations, Nathan's mind wandered to his assistant just outside the door. He could hear her voice as she took calls, handled problems, managed his world with the same competence she had always shown. Yet, now he was hyper-aware of her presence in ways that made him question everything about their professional relationship. Margaret Hartwell arrived unexpectedly, just before lunch, sweeping into Nathan's office with the imperious confidence of a woman, accustomed to getting her way. At 62, Nathan's mother was still striking. Her silver hair perfectly coiffed, and her Chanel suit making a statement about old money and social position. Darling? Well, regitre. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd take you to lunch. We need to discuss Grace's education. I've arranged interviews at several elite boarding schools. Nathan's jaw tightened. Grace isn't going to boarding school. We've discussed this. Nathan, be reasonable. The child needs proper socialization. With her own class of people, these public schools simply won't do for a Hartwell. Their argument was interrupted by Sophia's voice over the intercom. Mr. Hartwell, your lunch guests from Seoul have arrived early. Should I seat them in the conference room? Yes, thank you, Nathan replied, grateful for the interruption. Margaret raised an eyebrow. New assistant? She sounds different from the last one. Same assistant. Sophia's worked for me for 3 years. Margaret said, her tone suggesting she would investigate further. Well, I suppose we'll continue our discussion about Grace's future later. I do hope you'll make the right decision, darling. After his mother left, Nathan found himself watching Sophia through his office windows as she coordinated with the catering staff for the lunch meeting. She moved with purpose and grace, handling multiple tasks simultaneously while making everything look effortless. The Seoul team was impressed with the presentation Nathan delivered. But he knew much of the credit belonged to Sophia. She had researched their cultural preferences, arranged for proper translation services, and even ensured the catering included authentic Korean dishes. Her attention to detail made his job infinitely easier. Your assistant is remarkable, commented Mr. Park, the team leader, as they concluded their meeting. She has been most helpful in coordinating our visit. Nathan felt a surge of pride that surprised him. Sophia is exceptional at what she does. That evening, Nathan arrived home to find Grace in the living room with Mrs. Patterson, working on homework at the coffee table. His daughter looked up with bright eyes when he entered. Daddy, I drew a picture of the garden party for school. Want to see? The drawing showed stick figures around a blue pool, but Nathan immediately recognized Sophia's figure with long dark hair and a blue dress. Grace had drawn her holding hands with a smaller figure that was clearly meant to be Grace herself. Beautiful, sweetheart, Nathan said, studying the picture more carefully. You really like Sophia, don't you? She's wonderful, Grace said, matter-of-factly. She listens to me and asks good questions about my books. And she smells like flowers, not like that perfume smell the other ladies wear. Mrs. Patterson looked up from her knitting with knowing eyes. That young woman has a good heart. Grace has been talking about her all weekend. She's my employee, Nathan said, but even as he spoke the words, they felt hollow.
Of course she is,
Mrs. Patterson replied diplomatically, though sometimes the best things in life come from unexpected places. Over the following days, the atmosphere in the office shifted subtly. Sophia continued to perform her duties with the same efficiency, but there was a new dynamic between her and Nathan. Their conversations lasted longer, ventured into more personal territory. He found excuses to spend time near her desk, to seek her opinions on matters that went beyond her job description. Other employees noticed the change too. Rebecca Monroe made increasingly frequent visits to Nathan's office, her territorial instincts aroused by the transformation in his assistant. She began making subtle comments about appropriate workplace relationships and the importance of maintaining professional boundaries. Nathan, she said during one such visit, I hope you don't mind me saying, but your assistant seems to be getting above herself lately. Perhaps a reminder about proper workplace behavior would be appropriate. Nathan's response was ice cold. Sophia's behavior is exemplary as always. I won't tolerate any criticism of her performance. Rebecca's eyes flashed with jealousy, but she kept her voice level. Of course, I simply meant that office relationships can become complicated. You wouldn't want any gossip affecting the company's reputation. There's nothing inappropriate happening in my office, Nathan said firmly. And I'd appreciate it if you'd refrain from spreading rumors. But privately, Nathan knew Rebecca had touched on his deepest fear. The feelings growing inside him for Sophia were anything but appropriate. She was his employee, dependent on him for her livelihood. Any romantic relationship between them would be fraught with complications, power imbalances, and potential for disaster. Late one evening, as most of the office had emptied, Nathan found Sophia still at her desk, working on a presentation for his upcoming board meeting. She had loosened her hair from its professional updo, and the soft waves framed her face as she concentrated on her laptop screen. You should go home, he said, leaning against her desk. It's past 8. Almost finished, she replied, not looking up. I want to make sure the slides are perfect for tomorrow, Sophia, he said softly, and something in his tone made her look up. Why do you work so hard? You could have any job in the city with your skills. She saved her work and closed the laptop, giving him her full attention. Because I believe in what you're building here. Because you're a good man who's trying to make the world better while raising an amazing daughter. Because she paused, courage gathering in her eyes. Because I care about you, Nathan. More than I should, probably. The honesty in her voice stripped away his defenses. Sophia, we can't. You work for me. The power dynamic, the complications. I know, she said, standing slowly. But that doesn't change how I feel. And I hope, that you feel something too. Nathan stepped closer, close enough to smell her perfume, to see the gold flecks in her dark eyes. You have no idea what you do to me, he said roughly. But I can't ask you to risk your career, your reputation, for something that might not work. What if I'm willing to take that risk? She whispered. The space between them crackled with tension. Nathan raised his hand to touch her face, then stopped himself, his internal battle visible in his expression. I need time, he said finally. This isn't just about us. Grace has to come first, always. I would never ask you to choose, Sophia said. Grace is amazing, and she deserves a father who puts her needs first. But Nathan, you deserve happiness too, and so do I. The next morning brought crisis in the form of Margaret Hartwell storming into the office with fire in her eyes. She had obviously done her research on Sophia, and she was not pleased with what she had discovered. Nathan, she said, closing his office door behind her with more force than necessary, we need to talk about your assistant. What about her? Play innocent with me. I've heard the rumors about you two getting cozy at that pool party. I've seen how you look at her. This has to stop immediately. Nathan's voice was dangerously quiet. I don't know what you think you've heard, but Sophia is a valued employee and nothing more. please, Margaret scoffed. I wasn't born yesterday. That girl has set her sights on you, and you're falling for it like a fool. She's a gold digger, Nathan. Secretary trying to marry above her station. You don't know anything about her? Nathan said, his temper rising. I know enough. I know she comes from a working-class family, that she has elderly parents who need financial support, that she's exactly the type to see you as a meal ticket. Nathan, you're worth billions. Do you really think she cares about you for yourself? Her words hit Nathan like physical blows, awakening every insecurity he had buried since his wife's death. Margaret saw the doubt creeping into his eyes and pressed her advantage. Think about Grace, darling. Think about what's best for her. She needs a stepmother who can move in our circles, who understands our world, not some secretary with pretensions. After Margaret left, Nathan sat alone in his office, his mother's words echoing in his mind. He looked through the glass walls at Sophia, who was handling a difficult client call with her usual grace and competence. Was he being a fool? Was his attraction to her clouding his judgment? That afternoon, Thomas Chen arrived at the office unannounced, asking to speak with his sister. Sophia was surprised to see her older brother, but she led him to a private conference room with growing concern. Tommy, what's wrong? Is it Mom and Dad? We're fine, Thomas said, but his expression was troubled. Sophie, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Are you involved with your boss? Sophia's face flushed. Why would you ask that? Because someone called the restaurant today asking questions about our family, about your background. Professional. Type. Probably a private investigator. Sophie, if you're getting in over your head with some rich guy, it's not like that, Sophia said quietly. I care about him, Tommy. Really care about him. And I think he feels the same way. Thomas studied his sister's face, seeing the vulnerability. They're honey guys like that. Don't marry girls like us. They might have fun with us, but when it comes time to settle down, they choose their own kind. Nathan isn't like that, Sophia protested, but doubt crept into her voice. Maybe not, Thomas said gently. But his family, his friends, his whole, the world, they'll never accept you. Are you prepared for that fight? That evening, Nathan picked up Grace from school himself, needing time to think away from the office. As they drove home, Grace chattered about her day, but his mind was occupied with the impossible situation he found himself in. Daddy, Grace said suddenly, when are we going to see Sophia again? I want to show her my new book. Sweetheart, Sophia works for Daddy. She's not really part of our family. Grace frowned, her 8-year-old logic struggling with adult complications. But she could be, couldn't she?
Pass.
If you asked her to marry us? Nathan nearly swerved off the road. Grace, it's not that simple. Why not? You like her? I like her. Mrs. Patterson likes her. She makes you smile in a different way than other people do. From the mouths of babes, Nathan thought. But a child's perspective couldn't solve the very real. It's obstacles standing between him and happiness. The next few days passed in careful politeness between Nathan and Sophia. They maintained professional distance, but the tension between them was palpable. Other employees began to notice the change. The way they seemed to avoid being alone together. The formal way they spoke after weeks of growing warmth. Friday afternoon brought the crisis to a head. Nathan was in back-to-back meetings when Sophia received a call that changed everything. Grace's school was on the line, there had been an accident during recess, and Grace was being taken to the hospital. Sophia didn't hesitate. She called Nathan's driver, commandeered the company car, and raced to the hospital herself. When Nathan finally got the message and arrived 20 minutes later, he found Sophia in the pediatric waiting room, her professional composure cracked. With worry, how is she? He demanded. Broken arm, possible concussion, Sophia said, standing as he approached. They're doing x-rays now. Nathan, I'm so sorry I couldn't reach you sooner. You came, he said, something breaking open in his chest. You dropped everything and came. Course I came, Sophia said simply. She's Grace. And you're. She stopped herself before finishing the sentence. When Grace emerged from the emergency room with her arm in a cast and a tired smile, the first thing she said was, Sophie, you came to take care of me. Sophia knelt beside the wheelchair, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "How are you feeling, brave girl? It hurts, but the doctor said I can get a pink cast, and everyone at school will want to sign it." Nathan watched the interaction between the two most important females in his life, and suddenly his mother's words seemed small and petty. Margaret was wrong about Sophia's motives. This woman genuinely cared about his daughter, had dropped everything to be there in a crisis, asked for nothing in return. As they drove home from the hospital, Grace dozed between Nathan and Sophia. In the back seat of the car, Nathan looked at Sophia over his daughter's head and saw his own feelings reflected in her eyes. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for being there, for caring about her." "I love her," Sophia said simply. "She's an amazing little girl, and She paused, gathering courage. "I love her father, too." The admission hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable and terrifying. Nathan reached across Grace's sleeping form and took Sophia's hand. "I love you too," he said, the words feeling like both a surrender and a victory. "God help me, I love you too." But love, they would soon discover, was only the beginning of their story. The real test would come when the world tried to tear them apart. Epilogue. 6 months later, the garden at the Hartwell estate bloomed with spring flowers as guests gathered for an intimate ceremony. Grace, her arm long since healed, scattered rose petals along the aisle in her role as flower girl, beaming with pride at being part of the day she had helped orchestrate. Sophia stood at the altar in a simple but elegant dress, her hand in Nathan's. As they exchanged vows, they had written themselves. Margaret Hartwell sat in the front row, her expression softer than anyone had seen in years. It had taken time, but even she had come to see that Sophia's love for Nathan and Grace was genuine. Thomas Chen walked his sister down the aisle with tears in his eyes, finally convinced that Nathan was worthy of his sister's heart. Rebecca Monroe was notably absent, having transferred to the London office after her final attempt to sabotage the relationship backfired spectacularly. "You may kiss the bride," the minister announced, and as Nathan's lips met Sophia's, Grace cheered loudly. From her place of honor, at the reception, James Liu raised his glass in a toast. To Sophia and Nathan, proof that sometimes the best things in life are hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to bloom. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Nathan found Sophia on the terrace overlooking the pool, where their story had truly begun. She was still in her wedding dress, but her shoes were off and her hair had escaped its careful updo. "Any regrets?" he asked, pulling her into his arms. "Only that it took us so long to get here," she replied. Standing on tiptoe to kiss him, Grace appeared beside them, still wearing her flower girl dress and a mischievous smile. "Now we're a real family," she announced. "And Sophie, you can teach me how to garden, and Daddy can teach us both how to swim properly. Mrs. Patterson can teach us all how to make cookies." Nathan and Sophia laughed, their hearts full of joy and possibility. Love had found them when they least expected it, transformed them both, given them a future brighter than either had dared to dream. The simple secretary had indeed surprised the millionaire. By any end, she had surprised herself even more. She had learned that true love wasn't about hiding in the shadows or playing it safe. It was about stepping into the light and claiming the happiness that had been waiting for her all along. And as they stood together under the stars, their daughter, between them and their whole lives ahead of them, Nathan and Sophia knew that sometimes the most beautiful transformations happen not in spite of love, but because of it.